It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. My first guest, Moshe Kasher. Moshe's been a stand-up comic for the last 16 years. You've seen him on Fallon, on Conan. He was a regular on Chelsea Lately. Now he's got his own TV show. Problematic with Moshe Kasher. It's on Comedy Central right now. Like a lot of shows nowadays, it's got a comedian taking on the issues of the day, talking with newsmakers. He's explored cultural appropriation on the show, technology, Islamophobia. But there's something really intriguing in the show's format. He talks with experts and everyday people, and the result is this really frank and insightful conversation about things that we might otherwise be scared to talk about. Moshe had a pretty rough childhood. He grew up in Oakland. He got kicked out of a bunch of schools. He did hard drugs for a while, was in and out of institutions, went into rehab. He talks about that in his autobiography, Kasher in the Rye. Here's a clip from Problematic's pilot, where he talks a little bit about that.
Now, growing up in Oakland, I spent my entire teenage life trying to be down. And yeah, I know what I look like, but trust me, if you had seen me back in the day, you'd be like, damn, this dude is super confused about who he is, his racial identity, and the appropriateness of white people using the N-word. Yeah, that's right. I used to use the N-word. With an not an very important distinction. I was one of those white kids. I'm not proud of it, but again, that was before it was bad. I mean, okay, it was always bad, but it was not bad. Oh, it was a time when a white dude could say the N-word. You know, actually, can you just throw up my list of excuses? Okay, look. I changed, thank God. I don't say the N-word anymore because I grew up, and also because my friend Larry threw me up against the fence and told me he'd beat my ass if I ever said it again. Thank you, Larry. The conversation around...
Moshe Kasher, welcome back to Bullseye. It's good to see you, buddy.
Nice to be back. How you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing okay. I was talking to somebody last night at a comedy show, and I said, you know, I'm getting up tomorrow morning. I'm going to go talk to Moshe Kasher. Do you know Moshe? And he said, oh, yeah, sure. Moshe's great. And I said, I was trying to decide whether I should mention that the first time I saw Moshe perform, it's maybe 10 years ago, maybe more than 10 years ago now, 12 years ago in Oakland, on our mutual friend Brent Weinbach's show, I thought to myself, Christ, who is this?
You're not the first or the second.
So that's what the person I was talking to, he says, I don't think anyone has ever not had that reaction to Moshe Kasher.
Well, thanks for the delightful intro, Jesse. I think I'm a really likable guy.
But like when you're a stand-up comedian,
yeah,
one of the things, which you've been for quite a long time, you're a very successful stand-up comedian, one of the things that you learn to deal with and play with is what the audience assumes about you the second you walk on stage, right?
Did you think, who's this before I started talking or during my...
While you were talking.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's not really about assumptions. It's really about an analysis of the material. That makes me wonder what joke I was telling at the time. But yes, you do deal with expectations.
You were sitting on a stool and your legs were crossed and you were telling us a few things. You were letting us know a few things.
Sure. I love to let people know a few things. Although I don't sit on stage anymore.
But that is like a big part of what you do as a stand-up comedian because you get so little time often. You know, often you're talking for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And so you have to deal with what people assume about you or think about you the second you open your mouth. What have you learned about what people think about you when you walk on stage?
Well, you know, it has changed over the years because I've physically changed and I know you're a big fashion plate. Also, my style has changed.
So are you.
I am
one of the best dressed guys in comedy.
Thank you very much. Although the bar is
modest.
The bar is not
distinction,
a bar.
Yeah.
The bar is not a bar. It's a liquor store on the corner where you buy a 40. But I used to deal and interact a lot with the assumption that I looked or acted gay. And first of all, I like the notion of acting gay because it's an inherent flaw. There is no such thing. And that's a bit that I have in my act currently, but the idea that we all do this fun game where you look at a person and you assume their sexual orientation based on the way that they're acting, but really what you're looking at is them acting feminine or not, or masculine or not. You can't really act gay, as, you know, gay is one thing. It's that if you look down at the end of your genitals, if there's someone of the same sex, that's a gay situation, et cetera. It goes on for a while. But so that was a big part of the early years, was that assumption. But I used to have a bit, actually, speaking of manipulating expectation, I used to actually have a bit that was dependent on the audience laughing at me before I started to speak. And it happened organically. One time, the audience started laughing at me just because of the way I looked. And I wrote this sort of response to that on the fly, like, "Oh, thank you very much for the preliminary laugh at my physical appearance. I appreciate that. That's how I know the show's going to go well. When you start laughing, not at the jokes I wrote, but the body I was cursed with, go yourselves." Right? And then, so it was this fun way of, starting a show and, already setting all of the terms of engagement are clear. Oh, this guy's a jerk, but he really is a self-effacing jerk. A lot of this is about defensiveness. He knows how he looks, blah, blah, blah. And what would happen was over time, I would start I needed that preliminary laugh, and not every audience would give it to me. And especially as style started to change, I started looking less and less weird. I started looking more and more regular. So I no longer do the joke, but I'd have to kind of really
weird it up when
you
hit
yeah,
the stage.
just kind of walk with great neurotic purpose. Yeah,
Put your finger, your eyeglasses up on your nose.
And at a certain point, be like, "All right, guys, come on, just laugh at me, please, so we can start the show."
I feel like one of the things that comedian brains tend to do is search for contradictions and search for hypocrisies.
Yeah.
And that has some value.
Definitely has value.
It definitely has value, but it also can be a difficult and unpleasant way to lead life. And it can also lead away from affirmative behavior of looking towards what actually does make the world better or what is making the world better. I wonder how you deal with that on your show, because your show is in a broad genre of shows where comedians have difficult First Amendment-y discussions about the problems of the world and say what other people are afraid to say, but they make it hilarious. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When we started developing this show, the show didn't exist. And all of a sudden, now we're on the air, and there's 4 shows like it. Kamau did his show.
W. Kamau Bell.
W. Kamau Bell did his show, The United Shades of America, which is dealing with race in that way. Then Sarah Silverman announced that she has a show that's coming out where she's talking to people that disagree with her. And there's a number of other examples of this kind of show on the landscape. And the question is, of course, why? Why is this happening? It's obvious, right, that we're living in these extreme levels of bifurcation, right? Where people are literally living on different universal realities, right? I've done some podcasts that are known for being testing the limits of free speech, and then when I get on there, me, a progressive who's thought a lot about some of this stuff. I'm not an intellectual. I'm just a comedian that has progressive politics. And you see the comment stream is just "Shut up, you liberal idiot! You idiot! You idiot!" And it's like, oh, did you need me to agree with you in order to listen to this? Because I like listening to podcasts and talks by people that vehemently disagree with me. On the other hand, the left is doing it too, right? It's I have people in my community that I came up with in the Bay Area, I'm sure you do too, whose the new sort of paradigm is, no, don't let these people speak, chase them out of town. I don't like orthodoxy. I don't care for fundamentalism, even when it agrees with and bolsters my position. I think that's what I find so inherently distasteful about the current contemporary political climate, is that everyone is accusing the other side of hypocrisy, and then they get accused of the same hypocrisy, and it affects their point zero. Like when Richard Spencer got punched, right? And I wasn't into it. I mean, look, obviously there's some sort of Schadenfreude. I try to avoid speaking German correctly, both because of, the one history and also because of the Yiddish history.
Right.
So he and the other people in the alt-right were wanted, and they were doing these hilarious SVU deconstructions of the I, and we figured out who it is, and the Antifa guy exposed, and we got it, and they were raising a bounty to find this person, and they wanted this person because they were you've punched someone. Then comes the Berkeley riot, right? Where this, alt-right Nazi boy punches an 80-pound girl, and the whole alt-right just explodes and cheer, our hero, he's punched someone. And it's the immediacy of that hypocrisy was so transparent to me. By the way, the left is exactly the same. right? They were like, we punched him. We punched Richard Spencer. Ha ha, you got punched. And then the moment one of their people gets punched, it's like, you punched someone. It's like,
I got punched one time. I was just walking down the street because the guy had the same jacket on as me.
He just didn't like that.
I said, hey, nice jacket. He just punched me.
Man, that is a bad. I've been punched a lot. I mean, that's some Bay Area stuff right there. I mean, that's, I've been punched so many times.
Bay boys know about getting punched.
Yeah, especially you're a white boy. You're going to get punched. It's going to happen. I swear, by the way, these kids moved to the Bay Area from San Diego, like, I don't know, 15 years ago. There were some friends of mine, and they got robbed at gunpoint. And they were like, we're out of here. And they moved back to San Diego the next day. And I remember me and all my friends, my Oakland friends, were like laughing at these like dorky, cowardly white boys. Like, these pathetic punks. They moved back because of a robbery at gunpoint. It's like, welcome to the game, dude. And then I realize now as a 37-year-old man, like, no, they were right. Getting robbed at gunpoint is a very bad thing, and it should frighten you, and it's not okay to be into that.
I want to play a clip from my guest Moshe Kasher's new show, Problematic, on Comedy Central. You did an episode about the ways that technology is affecting our lives. And this is a staple of news entertainment television and has been for 15 years. Are we all just losing ourselves in our phones or whatever, right? And both of your parents, your late father and your mother, are and were deaf. And you talked to your mom about the way that technology has affected her life, which is to say, mostly positively. What you'll hear in this clip is a voiceover interpreter interpreting your conversation with your mom in ASL, in sign language.
And when you were young and you wanted to like call a friend, how would you do that?
I would actually have to ask my mom to call my friend's mom and set up an appointment for the two of us to hang out. And then we'd drive 30 miles or something to go meet my friend.
Right, so now you can finally just call her.
Right, I could do that right now. Hi, I can't talk. I'm on TV doing an interview with Moshe. Look, here's my best friend. So then I decided, you know what, I'm going to get a cochlear implant, one of those robotic ears. And that really changed my life.
You ever see those videos of deaf people turning on their cochlear implants for the first time and everybody gets all emotional? Like, I realize we never got a chance to do that, and I've always been kind of disappointed. Do you think we could try it?
Okay.
Okay, now, fake turn it on.
Hey, Mom.
Is
Mom?
that your voice?
It's my voice.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe that's your voice.
I think that one of the most interesting things about it is that we so rarely have any representation of disabled people on television, whatever the disability, whatever the physical disability might be, particularly, that it is just immediately vivid to see someone living with a disability on TV at all. Like just a person with a physical disability is represented on television is a huge deal because, you know, outside of a legacy of mockery of people's physical disabilities, once we decided we probably shouldn't do that, many of us decided that, the answer generally was, okay, well, let's just not have them in it.
Yeah, well, we do a thing where we willfully forget the disabled. I do it too, by the way. It's so easy to use deafness because deafness is the easiest, has the lowest barrier to entry. Deaf people seem cool and they have this beautiful language and, you know, they're awesome. And we know Marlee Matlin, you know, and that's cool. But once it starts getting ugly, it becomes more difficult. I'm really hoping to get more episodes not because I want to like eat more fame, but because I really like doing the show because each topic really excites me. And there are topics that I haven't done yet that I want to do. And one of them, I want to make the moral case for prostitution. And the reason that one really stuck out in my brain is because I heard this radio show a long time ago. It's very difficult to find. I don't even remember the name of it. It's like deep in the radio annals about sex workers that work with the severely disabled. And it was the kind of show, and first of all, the reporter was himself severely disabled. He had Lou Gehrig. And he himself, I think, had taken advantage of these sex workers, or I'm not positive. At any rate, it became very apparent, like, there are people, out there that are severely, severely disabled, to the degree that not only will probably no one be sexual with them, if we're being honest and blunt, but they also can't even pleasure themselves. They don't even have the ability to masturbate. They're so severely disabled. And this radio reporter made this really profound statement, which is what we do as non-disabled people is we assume that they don't have a libido. I came away from it going with an ambivalence about sex work. And at the end of it, I was like, oh, at least some of these people are absolute heroes. I mean, straight up, there is no moral qualm you could possibly have for what they're doing. I like that because it does throw a stone at orthodoxy and ideological orthodoxy.
It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. I'm talking with Moshe Kasher. His new TV series, Problematic, is airing right now on Comedy Central. One of the things that you do, Moshe, on your show, Problematic, is wade into the audience.
Yeah.
It reminded me that the thing that your show is most like, you're thinking like, oh, he has a little monologue at the top, a topical monologue. This is like a John Oliver or Daily Show type show where you're like, oh, he's got a panel of comedians making jokes about issues. Maybe it's a Chelsea Handler type show. But what it is most like is Donahue.
Yeah.
Like what it is most like is 1980s daytime television.
Yeah. By design.
Before every episode was about a paternity test, when only like 1 in 10 episodes was about a paternity test.
Yes, that was definitely by design. And it is the most, if I'm being honest, beyond the ego parts, it's the most challenging part of the show. In tonight's episode, or not tonight, I don't know when this airs, but in the Islamophobia episode, I feel like finally got to a synergy with the crowd. There's some real interesting situations happening with the crowd where, people were adding to the conversation. And we also did a thing in the Islamophobia episode that I would like to expand and continue to do, which is that we solicited questions from our online audience. So the Islamophobia episode, there are some very pointed questions about, the link between Islam and violence and Muslim leaders, being anti-gay and anti-trans and, real questions that are very uncomfortable. And what's cool about getting video submissions for those questions is that the immediacy of the camera is not affecting people's vibe.
Let's hear a clip from, I guess, Moshe Kasher's show Problematic and the episode about Islamophobia. So in this clip, you're playing back some comments that former Fox News personality Bill O'Reilly had to say about Muslims.
Tonight on Problematic, a breezy conversation on every American's favorite mixed company topic, Islamophobia. Now, here's how Islam is portrayed by our nation's top religious studies expert.
So the problems in the Muslim world are not just caused by individuals. They run much deeper than that. From wealthy Islamists funding al-Qaeda and ISIS to Sharia law being used to abuse women on a massive scale.
Yeah, ironic, coming from the only man in the world who women should wear a burqa around.
Do you have to control your urge to mock? And I say that as somebody I've known you for a long time, and you're as good a mocker,
yes,
as there is. Like you're an incredibly quick wit and can be very sharp. Whether you mean it or not, you enjoy the idea of finding something to prick and pricking,
sure,
right? But you're the host of a show, and the show is in part about listening. And obviously, mockery often shuts down.
Absolutely.
That.
Yeah.
So do you have to work to not?
Yes, for sure. I will tell you one thing that I am flawed regarding hosting is that I often find myself taking bait that I shouldn't be taking in the position that I'm in. And it's something that I'm very conscious of. When I have a right-leaning guest on, I will take bait that is not comedic and isn't in line with the principles of the show. And it is something that I'm trying to be vigilant about. We have this segment that we're doing for our online component called Why Do You Exist? Or How Do You Exist? Where I interview people like, why are you here? Like, your identity is so weird, Like we had a transgendered conservative Jew. How do you exist? Okay, now I had a very easy time having that conversation. But then there was a Latina who supports the wall. And I found myself disappointed in this conversation because I kept getting into an ideological conversation about why the wall is a bad idea. And that wasn't what the conversation was supposed to be about. It was supposed to be about her and how she, as a Latina woman, engages positively with the concept of Trump's immigration policies. It wasn't about me, critiquing Trump's immigration policies. So that's something I have to watch out for.
I think eventually you'll become a bait master.
Oh, yes. We'll flip that around and have a great time. And hopefully, if there's anybody out there that's not able to be a bait master on their own, I'll do an episode on sex workers who can come and master that bait themselves.
Moshe Kasher, it's always great to get to talk to you, and I've really enjoyed watching your show. So thanks so much for coming by, and congratulations.
Thank you for having me. It's always good to have an old school Bay Area homeboy around and in my life.
That's real. We repping the yay.
Yeah, we stay repping the yay.
Comedian Moshe Kasher. His show Problematic airs Tuesdays at midnight on Comedy Central. He's also the author of the wonderful memoir Kasher in the Rye, which is one of the best comedians' books I have ever read. For real, it's so great. It's called Kasher in the Rye.